Alright guys, now this last tip I have for you is gonna blow your mind. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be going over 5 editing tips to help you become a lot faster editor. So I thought I'd start off 2020 with a nice little editing tips video, but these tips are going to be a bit different from most other videos because I'm going to be covering things that a lot of pro editors don't actually realize they do. These are more so the secrets to editing just because they aren't really talked about and they take a very long time to learn naturally. So if you could drop a like and subscribe, that'd be much appreciated. As well as if you use code FLEA in the item shop, it'll actually double your editing speed. This is completely legit. Trust me, I'm a doctor. Nah, but anyway, let's get right into the video. Alright, so I'm going to be starting off with this first tip that might kind of surprise you, and it's lower sensitivity. So pretty much ever since I started playing Fortnite, I thought that the higher your sensitivity was, the faster your movements were. And obviously the faster your movements, then the faster your editing, right? Well, this is actually completely wrong, and it took me 6 months of constantly raising my sensitivity as high as I could possibly go to eventually realize that lower sensitivities make you faster. Now, pretty much what I mean by this is that if you have a really high sensitivity, it's going to be super hard to control. So in order to control that high sensitivity, you're gonna have to do slower movements. So let me just put on a high sensitivity real quick. So I'll just up my sensitivity to the max sensitivity. Now in order for me to edit, I kind of have to like slow down my movements in order to get the editing. I'm not actually putting my analog stick in full lock when I'm editing. As you can see, I'm like barely moving my analog stick to actually move. If I were to put my analog stick in full lock, even for just a second, as you can see, I just swipe to the other side of the screen. It's just way too fast. So in order for me to edit, I actually have to do a lot smaller movements. Whereas with low sensitivity, now that I'm on a much lower sensitivity, I can actually swipe down and it's a lot faster. I'm not like swiping down to 90 now. I'm just only doing as much as I need to for the edit. And this actually increases your edit speed because this allows to put your analog stick in full lock and still maintain your momentum rather than having to slow down your movements because you're playing on a too fast a sensitivity. So lower sensitivities are now the new meta. It took me 6 months of pain and suffering on high sensitivities to realize that the lower your sensitivity, the faster you actually become. So for your sensitivities, I wouldn't go any higher than 80% and I wouldn't go any lower than 40%. If you're going to use a really low X and Y sensitivity, then raise your build and edit sensitivity up so you can still keep those fast movements. Now the next tip I have for you guys is something I'm very well known for, and it's shake editing. It's basically where you're going to do an edit and instead of editing the squares like a normal person, you just kind of want to shake edit like that. So it's a lot quicker. It takes a lot of practice. But it's something, if you can get the hang of, can be super useful. Now for keyboard and mouse, this is really easy. If I just pick up my mouse right now, it's so much easier to shake your screen with a mouse. But with a controller, it's a lot harder. As you can see, it's a lot stiffer and it's not as shaky. This is one of those things where if you want to be really good at shake editing, you have to be using the linear setting on controller. I know there still are controller players out there that aren't using the linear setting, but it's gonna make your editing speed a whole lot better, especially with these shake edits. If I just swap back to exponential, it's a lot harder to do the shake editing because as you can see, I'm doing the exact same shake and it's like barely moving my crosshair. If I try to edit all the squares on exponential, you can see it just doesn't look as smooth or as clean on exponential. So linear, although it's harder to control, it's a lot better if you want to get really fast editing like that. Now this next tip is something that I've talked about in previous editing tip videos, but it's still something that I see barely any controller players do. It's smaller movements. If you listen to my first tip and you're on a slower sensitivity, now this smaller movements tip should be a lot easier for you. Now for some reason, I'm still seeing controller players when they're editing, they're just trying to edit every square that they're looking at, but what you actually want to be focusing on is you want to be focusing on editing the corners of each. So you kind of want to just get in the habit of looking at a wall and knowing where the 4 squares are before you've even edited the wall. So if I were to guess where the corner of the middle square would be, I'd say it's about right there. So that's about right. So yeah, so it's about there. And when I'm doing like, let's say 4 squares, I literally just want to be trying to do the smallest movement possible. I don't want to be doing anything out like this, all right? We don't need to be going outwards. We literally just need these 4 corners. That's all we need. And this goes with every edit. Let's just say I'm editing a cone. I know the 2 squares are here, but I don't need to swipe through the 2 squares like this. It's a lot quicker if I know this is the center right here. So I'm gonna go just over to the center a bit and I'm just gonna do that. Same thing with ramps. I know this square needs to come down to there and it's such a small movement for me to do. a lot easier to edit. Same thing goes with double editing. If we're editing 2 squares, I don't need to be editing like that. All I need to be doing is just nice small movements. But this small movements tip and shake editing wouldn't be possible without my control freaks. As you can clearly see, control freaks just extend your stick to give it more length, which actually gives you more range of motion and is able to give you more precise movements. I definitely wouldn't be able to shake edit without control freaks, just because if I take it off, your movement feels so clunky and it just feels so stiff without them. Everyone that's bought control freaks literally loves them, and everyone thanks me for recommending them Galaxy control freaks. So pick them up with the link in the description. They're only $20 and you'll see a huge improvement in your accuracy and your precision when editing. So that smaller movement tips goes side by side with this next tip, which is crosshair placement. Now this tip is huge, probably the biggest tip in this video. Crosshair placement is legit everything about editing, and the only person I've seen talk about this is Raider464. This tip is going to be the deciding factor for whether your editing and building just flows together or not. Now what I mean by crosshair placement is actually having your crosshair be set up so that after you edit, it's ready for the next thing you do. So for example, Razer X has really good crosshair placement just because he's barely moving his crosshair and is always doing the things he wants it to. He's so smooth because he's always got his crosshair in the right spot when he's editing and when he's building, so he barely has to move it. And this is the exact same when it comes to fast editing. You may see a lot of players doing this, including Face Sway. I see him do it a lot. It's where he does this ramp flip edit and immediately does the wall edit while sprinting. Now this edit is actually really hard, but with good crosshair placement, it can be really easy. Even someone like me on 60 ping, I can still do it really easy. So basically ramp flip and then you edit open the wall like that. And this is the best example I can think of having good crosshair placement, because basically it's because what most people do when they probably try this edit is they'll try and flip back like this, and while sprinting it's already too late to get that wall edit. Whereas instead what you want to do is you actually want to have the ramp already flipped, so that as you're running up, I'm going to have my crosshair already ready so that when I confirm, I can straight away edit and have my crosshair set up for the next edit. So I'm not going to be editing like this and then trying to do the edit and running into the wall. I'm going to quickly flip the ramp, and as you can see, crosshair ready. So as soon as that edits, I can do the wall edit. Another way I can see this is very useful is when doing edit downs. So what a lot of people do when they're editing downs, they'll edit these 2 squares and edit those 2. And this is good. If you get the muscle memory, it can be really fast. But if you combine my lower sensitivity tip with my smaller movements tip with my crosshair placements tip, then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be editing down here, and we're already looking at that corner to do that edit. Edit there, and as soon as we get to here, we look down and we do that edit, and eventually you just do it faster and faster. And yeah, eventually when you master this, it becomes so useful to do all the hard edits that you thought you couldn't do. Remember, when editing, don't think about the edits you need to do, think about the movements in which you need to do them. And this last tip is a tip that you're probably never going to hear ever again. It's something that no one wants to talk about, but it's failing edits. Alright, so you're probably like, Flea, like, why do you want me to fail edits? Like, what kind of tip is this? What do you mean failing edits? Well, let me explain. Failing edits is something that everyone does. It's inevitable in a game that's so mechanical, but it happens. We all do it. We all fail edits. We fail edits all the time. Even the best Fortnite players in the world fail edits. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to fail edits in a good way. So what I mean by failing edits in a good way is fail them so you don't actually fail them. So do edits in accordance that failing the edit doesn't actually fail the edit. Alright, do you get where I'm going with this one? So basically when you're editing, if you happen to miss a tile on an edit, it still actually does something that's editable. Let's just say I want to cut a wall in half like that, so it's a triangle. If I go upwards and I miss the top tile, it's a no edit. So if I'm doing a free build, let's just say I'm doing one of these moves and I do that, and I swipe up and it fails the edit, I run into the wall. I can't do anything. But if I'm editing downwards and I miss the tile, it still creates a door for me to go through. So I fail the edit, but I'm not actually failing the edit. This rule applies to a lot of edits. So if you're one to edit 4 squares like that, pretty much if you fail 2 squares, it does nothing, 3 squares, it does nothing. You have to nail the 4 squares in order to get an edit. Whereas if you were to do the 4 squares like this, let's just say, and you fall short, you still have a 3 tile edit. You fall short, you still have a 2 tile edit. So editing 4 tiles in a U shape is a lot better than editing 4 tiles in a C shape, This is really important with shake editing, another throwback. So with shake editing, what you want to do is you want to start so that even if you fail your shake, you've still got a 3-tile edit. So I want to shake a 4-tile edit, but I accidentally get 3 instead because I started from this square. If I don't happen to get the other square, at least I still got an edit. So that's why in my videos, you always see me when I'm doing 3-tile edits, I'll always swipe down like that, because sometimes I'll fail an edit and I end up getting 2 squares, but it still gives me the door. It's the same with 4-tile editing. So I'll, do a U shape, because if I fail the U shape, it still gives me a half wall. So I can actually still go through the edit. So hopefully that made a bit of sense. Basically, you just want to be starting on the outside tile when you're doing your edits rather than the inside, let's say, because you fail that, you get nothing. You fail a 4 square like that, you get nothing. So yeah, start from the outside tile and go downwards, because you'll always have something to edit through even if you fail. I know people don't like failing edits, but it happens to the best of us. So if you're editing in the most practical way possible, it's going to give you the best result in your gameplay. Alright guys, that's going to be 5 tips or 6 or 7, can't remember how many I did. Tips, tricks, and some secrets in there. I really had to dig deep in my brain to kind of think of what I do while I'm 1v1ing to kind of bring those secrets and tips from my gameplay into an actual video. But hopefully you understood some of what I was saying, and hopefully you got something out of this. I would love to know which tip helped you the most down in the comments below. Remember to drop a like on the video if you did enjoy, and subscribe, because you're not really going to get this content anywhere else on YouTube. I really try to keep my content unique and stuff you haven't seen or heard before, rather than just uploading 10-minute videos titled Lovely. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Hope you found this helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.